Good afternoon, gardening friends. It's now February 10th, I believe, at right after 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and things are starting to get things going. I've got another box that I've finished building, which I'll show you, because now I can finally reveal that big project that I said I was working on. But just kind of wanted to give you a view of what the garden looks like at the moment, and a couple of updates on things outside the garden, outside the patio garden. So let's take a look. So here's that big project I've been talking about. It's actually only partway done. It barely even started really on the outside. On the inside I'm still doing more building, but maybe you can sort of guess from left to right what I'm actually planning. I'll keep updating you as I add more boxes. So I haven't actually showed you the white pot in a while, and you can see the plants that are growing in there are growing pretty nicely. I'm starting to think I may have put some of my zinnia seedlings in there that were in the nursery on the patio at the end of last year, and they're doing quite nicely. It also appears that there's like a dandelion kind of weed in there, but I'm going to let it grow for a little bit and we'll just see. I'm kind of thinking maybe this year I'll do a little bit of not necessarily pulling weeds, as long as they're not detrimental. Because if they just show up, they're more sort of naturalized to the area. So, but the other thing I want to show you, let me go in a little closer on the brown pot. Now this was a pleasant surprise for me today when I was watering. If you look towards the back of that pot up against the wall, you'll see some grass-like stuff coming up, and that appears to be some of those bulbs that I planted have actually sprouted. So this is a pleasant surprise, since I planted them end of December, and it said it takes about 3 months to germinate. I don't think they were talking about 3 months to a full-blown flower, but it's nice to see something starting to pop up. I also haven't shown you the artichoke plant in a little while, and you can see that the leaves are getting even bigger than they were towards the end of last year, so that makes me happy. There is still some broom corn in there. I pulled quite a bit of it out because it was just looking really crowded. And if I actually pan down a bit, you can see some petunias that are growing in there. So this makes me happy, and I may not have to do too much with this particular planter. And I'm not so sure if I really gave you a view from the outside after I got that corner box back in, but there you go. Now you can kind of see what it looks like from outside. Actually, let me show you one more angle. Actually, I'm not sure if you're going to really be able to see what I'm doing from here, but if you look carefully, you'll see that red box, and you'll see the big planter to the left of that, and you'll see the line of other planters that I've been building up along the wall. So I'll let you kind of stew on that for a little bit, and we'll see if you can figure it out before I actually record the finished product. Next! Okay, good morning. It's now the 12th, and I'm on to the next project. The patio's not finished, but I've got this pergola to deal with, and I spent most of yesterday planning out what I'm actually going to plant. I'm going to move a couple of the pots here, and then I'm going to plant a whole bunch of different things. So let's see what it looks. Ultimately, when it's done, it's just going to look like dirt until the seeds actually germinate, but I'll try and give you a few little bits as I go along. Okay, I'll admit it, it took me a couple of hours to get to this point. I had a few interruptions, but I basically pulled up all the pots, emptied out all the soil, refilled them with soil, is basically turning the soil, and a couple of the pots I'm taking out of service, a couple of new ones I'm putting in. You'll see how that all goes. Now I'm up to planting seeds, but before I did that, I wanted to make sure I got everything swept up. This is a perfect opportunity to do the sweeping around. And let me show you a couple of pre-existing items before I plant seeds. Okay, in this planter I've already got a cardinal climber, sort of bottom left there. And as you go up the planter, sort of to the middle where the other label is, that's a Morning Glory Red, which is already growing. And a little further up, I'm not sure what that actually is. I have to try and figure out how to identify it, but what I wanted to point out is more towards right in the center of that thing. There's some plant, some volunteer that just seeded itself in there. I'm going to go ahead and leave it in there just for some variety, unless it starts interfering with all the other plants. So I've got that one here. And on the other side of the pergola, in that one planter that I'm kind of focused in on, There's another volunteer on the upper right, so actually now I say I got to clean out some more dead leaves, but I'll get that, I'll get some seeds planted and we'll go from there. Okay, so here's the basic plan. These are the 4 round pots that are going to go back in that I had pulled 2 of them out, realized I had some matching ones elsewhere and kind of shifted everything around. So I have a garden plan, and you probably won't see that too well, but I'll post a better picture. And I basically numbered all the pots in the garden plan. So 7 and 8, which are the larger of those round ones, are going to get Bachelor Button, Sweet William, and Coleus. And 9 and 10, which are the smaller 2 on the outside, get Bachelor Button, Sweet William, and Verbena. So I'll go ahead and plant some seeds. Okay, now I got all 4 of those planted out and ready to put back in place. Unfortunately, as I was doing it all, I accidentally spilled a little bit of Coleus into the smaller ones. They were supposed to only go in the bigger ones, but so I threw a couple more in the other small one. It should all balance out eventually. I was thinking more that the Coleus was going to be a little bit bigger than the Verbena, so I wanted to put those more towards the back in the pots that'll go in the back, which is the bigger ones. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put these in place and move on to the next step. Okay, so now what we've got is Moonflower going into the one at the top there and the 2 rectangular. Those are the ones that I haven't actually added any seeds to just yet. I'm not sure exactly all of what's growing in there, but Moonflower in these 3 and then the same 3 on the other side. Next up, Morning Glory in all 6 as with the Moonflower. Also, Black-Eyed Susan in all 6. And the final one for all 6 is going to be Cardinal Climber. Now I should also point out that the Morning Glories was a mixed pack, so I don't know what color I actually planted. But we've got white, we got yellow with a little black on it, the Black-Eyed Susan. We've got varying red and blue kind of shades, and we got the Cardinal Climber, which is going to be red. Okay, when I put together my original plan yesterday, I didn't realize just how packed all of these really were, so I'm making a little change. I've got 2 seeds left, a 4 o'clock and a lupin, and I'm basically only going to put them in that biggest pot. I've got 1 on each side, on the outside kind of the pergola. You'll kind of see when I show you a better perspective in a moment. But I'm going to go ahead and put those 2 in, and that'll be it for the pergola. So now, here we are back at the broader view of everything. All the seeds have been planted. Try and picture, if you will, that we're going to have a bunch of color on the outside of the lattice pieces. So there's one near us now, and there's one at the very far end. We've got the smaller pots, and, well, basically all the round pots have the really colorful flowers. And then the rectangular pots and the one bigger of the round pots have all the climbing vines. So there'll be vines, hopefully a whole bunch of colors climbing up. So now all that remains for this project is to water and wait. On to the next thing. Okay, I still got a little bit more cleanup to do, but I do want to show you that in the midst of doing all the other stuff, I actually managed to rework one of the hanging planters. You can see the red ring in the foreground there. That's from the old one, and now the green one's going to go up in its place. I have 2 green ones ready to go, but I got 4 to do. We'll see. I'll get to them eventually. Maybe I'll manage to get to it all tomorrow, but that's ready to go. I just need to actually hang it and, well, plant some seeds in it and hang it. And it's just going to be some more nasturtium. So I think that's it for today until we pick up again. Good afternoon, gardening friends. It's now, let's see, February 13th, a little before 3 p.m. And believe it or not, the temperature here is in the mid-80s in February. Kind of unusual weather, but we're getting a lot of that all over the country. So I wanted to point out what I've done recently. I'm trying to get through all the pots and do things. And this one here, I've got the 2 plants up front. I've kind of rotated it because before it was kind of askew, because I think I planted 3 seeds and only 2 of them took. So what I did was I took the lattice work for behind it that I built, and I picked it up and moved it over a little bit, so now it's lined up. I put Moonflower, Morning Glory, Cardinal Climber, and Black-Eyed Susan in here. Lots of possible color. We'll see what actually takes. And that's pretty much it for this planter. Let's take a look at what else I've done. So if you were watching last season, I rebuilt these planters specifically because I wanted to get some artichoke plants growing. I bought 4 of them. Looks like I'm down to the 1 surviving, which is on the right planter there. I had planted, a month and a half ago, some petunia, which you can see growing in that right planter. I had sunflowers in the left planter. They grew, got big, and then pretty much just died. So, the new plan, except for that one on the right, and I've got 1 more of these planters. The one on the right, because it has the artichoke plant growing in there and I don't want to disturb it too much, I'm pretty much leaving it alone. I planted a little bit of marigold in the front. On the left one, I put a whole line of marigold in the front, laid down some coleus in the middle, and I planted Malabar spinach, which is a climber, in the back. I don't know which ones are going to take because this tends to get a lot of shade during the day. Coleus will probably theoretically be the one that survives the best. The marigolds seem to grow before, and you can see the petunias growing. So that's what I'm trying to do with all these planters, is basically Malabar in the back, Coleus in the middle, and marigold in the front. So we'll see how that all works, but let me show you the other planter real quick. So this is that 3rd planter, and what I noticed today as I was putting seeds in between 2 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, this is actually getting sun right now. So at least for the next few weeks, probably we'll be able to sort of tell the difference in the germination, what happens if it gets a lot more sun versus being constantly caught in the shade. But that's the 3rd planter. Like I said, it's got Malabar in the back, Coleus in the middle, and marigold in the front. There were a couple of plants that were already in there. There's a couple of petunias which just haven't been getting as much attention, but they're still alive, so hopefully they'll bounce back. And in the back, I'm thinking those might be a couple of zinnia plants, which reminds me of that big white pot. I'm going on the theory because going back to my videos, I can't see where I documented what I actually planted in there. That's why I'm documenting now. But I'm thinking those might be zinnias that are growing because they're getting rather big. So here in the north courtyard, which I don't think I've actually covered this season, is a planter which last year I had a lot of different climbing plants, and they worked to varying degrees, mainly the Moonflower and the Black-Eyed Susan, and a little bit of Cardinal Climber. The Black-Eyed Susan seems to be the only thing that survived thus far, or through the winter I should say. So I've put in Morning Glory, Moonflower, and Cardinal Climber to complement the Black-Eyed Susan, which has survived. And let me see if I can pan up and show you. Hopefully you can see there's a fair amount of it hanging off of this bamboo lattice structure. So I'm hoping that the others will climb. This actually got really tall. Let me see if I can show you. You can kind of see the loops at the top there. That's probably a good 10 feet off the ground, maybe even 12. So they've got plenty of room to grow if any of them actually germinate. We'll see. Good morning, gardening friends. It is now Valentine's Day. It's a little before 10 in the morning, and I finally finished that special project I was working on. I haven't actually filled in the planters, but if you look, you can see I've got a nice gentle curve going from the regular height of the wall, starting with, let's see if I can get my finger in there, starting right around here, and working its way up to the big planter. So, this was a lot of work. I thought it was a lot of calculation at first, but it turns out calculation was the small part. Cutting the wood, not so bad. All the glue up was what was a killer, but that's what it looks like. Good morning again, folks. It's now the 15th, the next day, and yesterday I had a little problem with shooting. I don't know if you're a regular poster on YouTube or you shoot a lot of video, you might sort of recognize this. I basically I got out of sequence or out of sync with shooting, and when I was hitting the button to start the recording, I was actually hitting it to stop. So everything I recorded after that first segment yesterday, that was lost. So let's catch you up. I've now managed to actually plant out all of the individual pieces of that curved part of the planters, and I was going to tell you that I discovered that one more of the larger boxes was falling apart. So what I managed to do yesterday was take what was in there, transplant it into another one that I had just finished building, and now you can see I've got the pieces laid out to dry out. They've been there since yesterday, so I should be able to now clean them up, sand them down, whatever I need to do to try and start putting them back together. I'm going to have to do the glue up again. It's probably going to take 2 or 3 days to get that done, because I have to do it kind of piecemeal, and I have to fill gaps with glue. It's a technique that seems to be working. Time will tell, but that's what I've got going there. And here in this one planter back here, that's the one that I had just finished rebuilding. So I took the flowers that were in, let me slide over a bit. I'm not sure how well you can see it, but there's a gap right in here, and that's the one that fell apart. So I transferred the ones from here over to there, the plants that were in it. So the plants are transplanted and appear to be surviving, although a little bit sickly. And that gets me that much closer to being done here on the patio. There are a couple of other little things. First, I've got the 2 tomato planters. The one on the left seems to be bouncing back finally. The one on the right is pretty much dead. So earlier this week I ordered up seeds, and they have now come in. So I'm going to be planting a hard rock variety tomato, which is a compact plant with what looks kind of like Roma potatoes, but they're much heavier on the meat. And since I really enjoy my tomatoes, that meat is really kind of, well, I eat them like apples, honestly. So to have more meat is a good thing. That's the tomatoes. And in here with the Swiss chard, I've got one little sprout right there. I don't know if you can see it too well. Oh, and actually I got another little something sprouting here. I believe I've got a number of different things in there. I should have already covered those in this episode. So I'm starting to get sprouts. That's a good thing. And next to the Swiss chard in my basil planter, basil and herb planter, I guess you call it, I got something else starting to grow right there. I don't know how well you can see that. So I'm starting to get sprouts. This is making me happy. Also this morning I noticed that I have more flowers on the kabocha squash, and if you look carefully you'll be able to see just below that flower that there's actually a fruit developing right on the end of the stem there, between the stem and the flower. It's a tricky shot to get, so I hope you can see it, but fruit developing on the kabocha squash plant is a good thing. So that leaves a couple of developments here. I took 2 of the boxes from the patio and put them on the outside of the sort of terracotta colored plastic containers we had already on the wall. Those 2 were already planted with seed, so I didn't want to just toss the dirt or whatever, so I went ahead and put them up on the wall, and with some luck they'll grow out and give me plenty of color. And down on the lower left there you can see I got one more hanging planter getting ready to go. I've taken down another one of the red ones, which I'll show you in a second, and took the soil out, turned it, added a little more, filled this up. I just got to put seeds in there and we're off and running with that one. And so that second one will go in this area here where I've got the 4 planters. Now I've got 1 replaced, that's the second one, and then I'll have 2 more to go. I think that's about it for this episode. I may or may not get some things done this weekend, and that'll just go into the next episode. So until the next episode, have a great weekend.